What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Oh, like Caesar's siege of Elysia in 52 BC, Dynasty Points comes hot with an absolute epic matchup today for 5 for 5. I can feel it, but before we get to the best game in the fantasy football space, can definitely be attempted to be copied, but never truly duplicated. I won last week for podcast listeners that didn't go and check it out. Easton Stick, shout out once again. Jakob just repeating answers and my catching on. So shout out for that.
We've done an Easton Stick jersey retirement in the 5 for 5 arena. He can never be used again. The Easton Stick jersey is now in the rafters. It's been retired. He can't be used in any future clubs. He's the first official member of the 5 for 5 Ring of Honor.
My starting quarterback of building a team for 5 for 5, that jersey officially retired. So you might be asking, what else do we have going on for today? Well, let's be honest. The mentions, I was fighting this battle not that long ago with the Tank Bigsby crowd. I believe that was last week. Ryan, I sent you some of those gems. We have had a lot of Tuten versus Etienne and best ball. So we thought, how can we discuss ambiguous backfields in a way that benefits everybody? We're going to talk probably a little bit more best ball strategy in this than normal, but we've done it in a way that we think reflects for this season and beyond. So there's that. We're going to talk about what matters and what doesn't for pointing out ambiguous backfields, what it actually means for ambiguous backfields, because I feel like that was tossed around a lot online over the last week, but not actually hit on correctly. We're also going to talk about some backfields that we're going to target. So we have some examples. We're going to talk through why we're targeting those backfields. Of course, Dynasty Q&A, it might be rapid fire like we did last week, might be a little bit more in depth. We'll see how the night treats us. Not going 2.5 hours would be probably the most ideal, but we'll see what happens. There's never any guarantee.
How many comments you guys submit. It's here as long as you want.
And like I said, 5 for 5. Granted,
make sure to star that by John Atlas. That's going in the Q&A.
We had some comments from people last week from the Jaden Reed sock incident, and I feel like it both mentioned, like, look,
I can issue a formal apology.
We talk on this show a lot, okay? And one thing that we've always said is when you get to like early into the second hour of a Tuesday night, late night, at the time, like late May Dynasty podcast, we cannot be held totally responsible for what's said. So I will say, maybe parental advisory warnings, slash, like,
we gotta have the explicit rank on our podcast.
We do. Oh, absolutely, we do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we cuss a lot. I'm just saying, we can't be totally held responsible for what happens 2 hours into a Dynasty podcast.
I will promise not to make any comments for this episode about anything that I have in my closet that is submerged in any sort of substance.
Just this one specifically. We'll save it for next week.
Everything's off the table. But this week, it's going to be rainbows, lollipops,
just clean.
Sunshine. Yeah,
I'd say we're not cussing, but we know.
Teletubbies of Dynasty podcasts.
Oh my God.
The big comfy couch.
Comfy couch. There's one I can relate to. I can relate to big comfy couch. Obviously, shout out to the chat. I am Kev. Was here way early. Looking forward to this. Theo reminding everybody the like and subscribe button. Look, without you guys, we don't eat. My family needs Timbits. Jakob, Also, the family needs the Timbits. Ryan needs more iced coffees, and Lucas lives a top secret life, which I can only imagine he eats poorly dispersed rations on a regular basis as they lock him away in hiding. So shout out to everybody here. TD in the chat, obviously. Nick says he's going to tweet some Bhayshul Tuten FUD at Jakob after this show. We're going to see.
You won't be the first. You won't be the
last. And also shout out TD, who's been watching my TikTok and Instagram series about my garden. People have been asking me about this continuously, so I have started to put this up. All right, let's kind of get into it. I'd like to start the show with something a little bit off the wall because it kind of just eases in to the show. Jakob, Ryan, you guys have been in a startup that I have heard nothing but moaning and groaning about for dynasty managers, just so they know.
Ryan committed one of the cardinal sins of dynasty startups.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
I did. And I was so pissed at myself for doing it.
It was disgusting behavior.
So I guess
Ryan,
we'll just lead in with that.
I'll put every other manager on blast first. The lack of trade activity in this league is alarming. It's a league entirely of dynasty Twitter personalities. You would think, this would be the most active, engaged draft imaginable. Everybody should be wheeling. They should be dealing. There's been very little wheeling or dealing. It's been primarily people just sticking and picking. But Ryan gets up on the clock at some point. I should actually say right after I make a trade on the clock. Ryan comes in right after. We're side by side.
And also for context, the trade Jakob made was with the manager I was negotiating with for the previous hour. So this is stepped on my toes in terms of my trade negotiations. If that makes you feel good.
Sorry about your toes. I'd hate if your toes have been stepped on. But I complete the trade, and then Ryan, I guess, just throws a hissy fit, takes revenge on the entire room, because he's he does the classic, which I do too, sitting there accepting offers, etc., etc. No less than 4 hours after being on the clock, do we get the notification? Hate to be this guy, but at 3 individual people. I have offers in your inbox that you haven't responded to.
I'm
not going to pick unless I get a response.
That part's not true. That did not happen.
That's the part you just made up.
It was implied. It was implied. It was heavily implied. He then eventually picks 30 to 60 minutes after that. Wound up being a big nothing burger. I did roast Ryan in the chat afterwards. I got a lot of laugh reacts. And he stuck there and picked the highest player in ADP after 5 hours.
Look.
So what was happening in this startup? Before I got on the clock, I had sent a trade offer to probably half the board at that point. It was kind of a weird startup. A few players went very ahead of ADP. So I do think that might have spooked people in terms of, I really want to see what's at my pick when I'm on the clock. That was kind of the answer I kept getting was I want to wait and see. So that I felt like I had been sending out trades for 3 or 4 hours before I was on the clock, didn't get anything done, sent out several more while on the clock, had privately added people. On Sleeper, you get when someone's viewed your offer. If someone views it and doesn't respond, that's fine. I know you've looked at it. It's fine. I'm gonna ignore you. But I'm sorry. You're in a dynasty startup. It's happening. We've been in this startup chat for talking all weekend about how we're going to figure out the draft order and all the rules and doing all the polls and everything. I know everybody is active and engaged and knows that this is going on. I don't know. I feel like the least that I can ask is check your trades during the second round of a dynasty startup in a timely manner. And I don't think it's my fault if people don't. I have an 8-hour clock. I was happy to sit on it for 4 hours while waiting for people and intermittently DMing them and tagging them. What else am I supposed to do there? I'm sorry. It's just I was very frustrated with this startup. Really frustrated for getting a Jamar Chase Puka Nacua start. Like it's like the saltiest Chase Puka start I've ever had. But
I was frustrated that Ryan was so afraid to compete that he didn't even invite me. I had to get invited by Ron Stewart.
Wow.
Jacob, I joined this startup because I saw you reply to Ron Stewart, and I was like, "Oh, sick! I can get in a startup with Jacob. Yeah, count me in." I just assumed you were in. I knew my assumption the entire time was that you were in this startup, Jacob.
And now I am, and now I'm making your life as miserable.
So I have the idea of like you're in a startup, like be checking stuff. It goes that way for like. I get a lot of heat for this like the tagging the next person thing. Sometimes I just can't. Like sometimes I'm like out and it's, I'm doing my part in like making my pick. Like sometimes I can't. I log in, I click draft, I go to I'm up. Boom. I have all my notifications turned off. I know when I'm in drafts. Like I don't expect people that like I know when I'm in there, I check it constantly. I check it every how long. When I'm on, I check my stuff and I get out. So like, yeah, sometimes I'm not in a position to like, do the tag thing. I don't even know who's after me sometimes. I literally just go click and check my phone off. I don't know. I get the same thing as you're saying, Ryan. Like, you're in startups, you're in like rookie drafts, etc. Be an active manager, I guess. I take a lot of shit for this. So I get it. I totally understand. I'm the same way.
Is this also your approach with women? Like if someone doesn't reply to you on Hinge, or you're like, hey, like I sent you a date offer 4 hours ago. I just would like confirmation of whether you'll be accepting or not before I move on to the next person. If you don't provide a response, I'll be unmatching in 30 to 60 minutes.
Just want to let you know that I got another offer. So you have to.
I do have another offer by box. I could go on a date with Lad McConkey, but I'm still open to negotiations with you. So let me know. Smiley face.
But I'm not going to take less than the offer given. So you have to match or better the offer.
Market value.
But oh yeah, you got to send exploding date offers on Hinge. That'll really get the point.
I would like 1.25 base one.
Imagine being on Hinge and sending a date offer and getting hit with a keep trade cut screenshot about why you're not good enough to go on the date. Your market value isn't up to snuff.
It's like your value versus where you're going, and it's like Starbucks. It says heavily favors the person offering.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god!
Just how quickly this show completely went off the rails here. I haven't had to say anything, and I just get to sit back, and this is why I'm treated to every single Tuesday night. Oh my gosh!
Look, I think we can solve the average fantasy player's lack of maidens simply by applying fantasy football trade strategy to Hinge dates. I think we might have invented something to really help the people. So guess what? We might be onto something here.
I'll try it out. I'll report back on how it worked.
Well, we had somebody. Well, we definitely.
I have my suspicions it won't work well, but
Earn Marks wanted to know.
Like, I would suggest the opposite strategy, honestly. On like, I'm not gonna give unironic dating app advice on this show. Never mind. I'm not gonna finish that sentence.
I can't say I've been out the dating pool way too long to even begin to, but. Look, Earn Marks wants to know, the one question I have is, did Jacob's date give him a second date after the last episode?
Yeah, she did. We went for brunch. We had a little walk around the beach on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. There we go. That was sounds like a fair offer on Keep Trade Cut. For sure. Yep. That's what that sounds like.
Offer accepted.
All right. That's going to do it. Let's take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to talk ambiguous backfields, not ambiguous dating advice. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, like I mentioned before, there was a ton of talk about ambiguous backfields online, if you live chronically online and you are, especially in the best ball streets, I'll break my own rules and mention best ball. We will not have the best ball counter up for today, as I know that it is coming and that it has a reason. I'll kick this off by saying I think people don't fully understand the importance of a hit of an ambiguous backfield. And I'll also kick this conversation off with I feel like people are way too comfortable putting every day 3 running back in the same box. I feel like it is pretty easy to separate. Yeah, it has to be said because people just say day 3 running back, this is the hit rate. I mean, it was in my mentions today, in which I shared with Ryan, and we'll talk about that today. But it happens way too much when there's just a clear favorite. In regards in this conversation, it was, if you heavily favor Travis Etienne and the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield, the first thing people often mention is, well, he was a first-round pick and Tuten's a day 3 pick. It's one of the first answers that pop up. So let's discuss what matters and what doesn't in an ambiguous backfield. I'll throw it to Jakob.
Oh, I have to go first? All right.
You have to go first.
Okay, so I got an ill-advised Twitter fight about this, where I was kind of doing like the Donkey Kong Super Smash Bros. 1 versus 100 melee situation, which just never brings out the best in anybody, least of all Donkey Kong, but second least of all myself. I think the first thing I want to say is I was specifically talking about Best Ball Mania. This is a Dynasty show, so I should explain sort of the difference in how I view these situations between the two formats. My argument for best ball, and I'm about halfway through a pretty quick thinking post on this specifically that I'll finish either tomorrow or when we finish recording, is best ball tournaments are an incredibly narrow path to winning. Even if you think you have an edge in best ball tournaments, more often than not, I mean, almost every single year you will lose money, even if you're playing quote unquote well, because just look at the odds of, the average would be you have about a 10% chance of getting one team to the finals. And without getting a team to the finals, you basically can't make money. Dynasty, of course, is very different. You have a 1 in 12 chance to win. Most people, I'm guessing, that listen to this show probably play in close to 12 leagues, more than 12 leagues, maybe 50 leagues, who knows. And so it's quite plausible that you can come away from every Dynasty season as a winning player. So I think how you view it should be very different based on that. The way I view it in best ball is that it doesn't. If you think one player has a 60% chance of being better than the other player, in my view, you should draft that player basically 100% of the time in best ball. You can disagree with that, but that's my view of it, because you're drafting all these different teams, the vast majority of which are going to get killed anyways. And I think if I think Tuten is even a marginally better bet than Etienne, or vice versa, then I'm just going to make that bet pretty much every time, and I'm going to try and get them with as many combinations of other players in as many different pods as possible, and just hope that one of those teams gets through to the finals, so that if I'm right, I have the best chance possible of actually getting a chance to realize my correct position. In Dynasty, I mean, first of all, it's not comparable because these guys don't really have the exact same value in Dynasty as they do in best ball. But regardless, in Dynasty, your view should be more, if you're a good Dynasty player, if on average you're coming away and you're making money in Dynasty, if you have a better than 1 in 12 chance of winning your average Dynasty league, then you probably don't want to do a bunch of shit that vastly increases the variance of portfolio. You don't have to go and take 100-0 stands. You probably do want to actually smooth it out a little bit, play the odds, hedge, and say, okay, if this does go not the way I expect, I'm still going to have a little bit of exposure to the other player so that I'm not completely bricking my season and leaving it all based on this one decision point. So I think the way you view it changes a lot. But the one thing that I would always stress in every format is, especially when we're talking about pretty low cost bets, which in every format, when we're talking about the Jags backfield or most ambiguous backfields, these are pretty low-cost bets. Tuten's going what, like between the 2.6 and the 2.10? I don't know where ETN's price is exactly today. I'm guessing it's probably a pretty similar value.
RB29 to RB34. So ETN is RB29, Tuten is 34 through the month of May.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not an investment that's making or breaking your team in any respect. So if I'm viewing it for these guys, I don't think you should really be making decisions. And this is everything I believe in fantasy football, based on what is the most likely thing to happen. Is this player of a 51% chance of outscoring the other player? I just don't think that that's relevant. It's like you're providing a measure that is completely divorced from the game that we're playing. This is a game that every single season is defined by 5, 10, maybe 15 players that are outliers at the given position. And in Dynasty, that's true on two fronts. It's true in the production front, and then it's also true in the value gain front. You want to be the one who looks back next offseason and looks at your rookie drafts and says, oh my God, I got a player who would go 105 if we were redrafting this. I got him at the 207. I drafted this player in the 11th round of a startup. He's going in the 3rd today. And when you're looking at it from that perspective in Dynasty, I think it's pretty clear and obvious, in my view, that it's a lot more likely for Tuten to be that player than Travis Etienne. Maybe it's not more. I'll even just concede. It's actually just straight up not more likely, in my opinion, that Tuten outscores Travis fantasy points in 2020. But like if we're sitting here talking about one of these guys going in like the 3rd round of startups, the 4th round of startups, we're talking about one of these guys having this ridiculous season. Then yeah, I'm betting on the rookie with a really encouraging profile, who we haven't seen be inefficient for 2 straight years, and who, from a Dynasty perspective, has a chance to produce now and then gain value in a way that Etienne can't really going into his 60s in the same way. So from a impact of hit perspective, which I think should always be your perspective, I think you want to go Tuten, and I don't think that is like some arrogant thing to say or that presupposes that we're certain of what's going to happen. It's just a process that I think you want to apply over and over again, and you'll find yourself getting better results on the whole because of it.
Yeah, there's nothing you said that I could really disagree with, Ryan.
Yeah, so I'm going to ramble a bunch. I think my thoughts apply relatively equally to best ball and to Dynasty, because I'm really looking at this as more of how am I almost like how am I thinking about thinking, Jakob? Like how do I want to approach like just breaking down a backfield like this, and what are the things I care about and what are the things I don't care about? So I think like the first thing I want to say is that we should be able to hold multiple opposing thoughts in our heads at the same time. That's an important life skill. That's an important fantasy football skill, because
not on the internet.
Yeah, and that's the other kind of fun irony of it, is that it's the exact opposite of what gets rewarded on social media. But in every other aspect of life, being able to hold multiple opposing thoughts in your head is advantageous. It lets you more fairly or more objectively evaluate the different options, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at this Jaguars backfield, I can look at it and I can say, okay, there's definitely a world we could live in where Travis Etienne kind of gets like the 60 to 70% opportunity share. Maybe he's not overly efficient on it, but this is expected to be a really good offense. I expect this to be a very good offense. He hangs on to like the important touches, and he's a clear win at his ADP in both formats, in best ball and in Dynasty. I think that's entirely possible, maybe even likely. I can also see the scenario where this team has a new regime. Their GM specifically called out Bhayshul Tuten as a priority target for the team. Like in his interview process was, I believe, one of Jeremy Fowler's reports right after the draft. We have also had reporting that the team was not particularly into their backfield options, both before and after the draft. meaning Etienne and Bigsby. And maybe we see the insanely fast and explosive rookie with a penchant for big plays slowly take over this backfield as the year goes on, and we look up in December and he's the guy you needed. I think that's also like a totally viable outcome. And I could go through just about any backfield in the league and kind of spell out what I think is the most likely scenario or what it would look like if either of these players won. And I think you should be able to do that before you really take a stance or pick a side. I will disagree slightly with Jakob, at least on the best ball front, where he says Jakob just wants to make whatever he thinks is the better bet pretty much all the time. I understand that way of thinking. I do still think there's room for like roster construction considerations in best ball, right? I think you can draft a best ball team with your running backs earlier in the draft in such a way where you might be like, wow, I really need to lock in like some earlier season production. This is a little dicier in like the playoff tournament formats, but staying with me, there can be considerations where you're like, okay, an ETN archetype might be of more use to this team than a Tuten archetype, where I actually have no clue where maybe I drafted like Omarion Hampton plus Caleb Johnson. This is like a really weird build, but this team desperately needs early season production. Maybe now ETN looks more appealing to me, right? I think there can be room for finding use in making either bet, because I think you can almost view them as independent bets. They're literally not independent bets. If one succeeds, it's less likely the other one will, but they are independent. In each draft, you can independently make either bet, right? You can choose to draft Tuten at cost, or you can choose to draft ETN at cost. And what each other's costs are, my biggest kind of thing is that has no bearing on the likelihood that the other one hits, right? Like it does not make it any more likely for ETN to hit because Tuten is more expensive. And this is something that's been tweeted at me like a half dozen times today, probably after I specifically said it didn't make sense. Especially when we're talking about late round picks in best ball or later-ish second round rookie pick value-ish players in Dynasty. Cost isn't really that important because, yeah, as Jakob says, upside wins championships. There's a handful of league winners every year. Our job is to find them. The difference between 6 to 8 slots of ADP is not going to show up in your postseason results whatsoever. So yeah, I guess those are a bunch of the things I don't care about. The comparative costs. I don't think you have to like pick a winner in terms of I have to in every circumstance say just assume that the backfield is going to play out this way and build every draft around that. And I guess the last thing I don't care about is draft capital from previous regimes. I don't care that Travis Etienne was a round one pick 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 coaching regimes ago.
I think at this point, isn't it?
Say that again. Sorry.
4? No, I guess 4 years ago. This will be his 5th season. Never mind. Yeah.
However long ago it was, not particularly doesn't really hold any weight in my evaluation. I don't think it necessarily holds weight in the team's evaluation, and I don't think it held weight in last year's team's evaluation when ETN was losing touches to Tank Bigsby and Dearness Johnson week after week. So yeah, he was a former first round pick. Doesn't really move the needle for me at all. I guess on draft capital in particular, to Tom's earlier point, we do need to stop guys with he's a day 3 pick. Day 3 encompasses so many players and such a wide range of totally different bets, everywhere from guys like Tuten and Cam Skattebo that are drafted at the top of the 4th round in a very deep running back class to incredibly ambiguous backfields without entrenched starters, all the way to like the DJ Giddens is, where it's like, okay, maybe interesting player, but clear entrenched starter ahead of him. Team probably has no plans to give him immediate touches whatsoever, all the way to like pick your random round 7 or UDFA, like your Kyle Manon guys or whatever. These are all different players, very different bets. We don't have to just worship what the base rate is of a day 3 pick, what the base hit rate is. We can, even if you just want to stick in the realm of draft capital, we can look at in much narrower bands of hit rates, right? From the 100th to the 109th pick, there have been 12 running backs that finished top 24 in fantasy since the 2010 season. It's been 10 running backs from picks 80 through 89 to do that, which is where Caleb Johnson was drafted, for example. So we shouldn't be so binary in terms of day 2 versus day 3. Like there is late day 2, there's early day 3. The hit rates are different. It's much more of like a smoother, continuous spectrum, but both in terms of empirically in the hit rates and also probably in how teams think of them, which is kind of the important part of draft capital and how much teams are willing to or planning to give opportunity to these players, right? It's not at all clear to, I don't understand basically why we should pretend that a team has the same intention of playing the 100th overall pick as the 200th overall pick. And that's the day 3 base rate worship logic.
So
you got to get rid of this day bullshit. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. Like we've got to just adopt like ranges or something. Like it's either got to be like, 30 to 50 or 50 to, it's just that the only reason the days exist is for television purposes. Like if we just stop with the days, it wouldn't matter. Like it's insane.
If we're looking just at how people are going to value them next year, regardless of production, round 3 running backs don't enjoy the same protections as round 2 running backs do if they're not going to perform. They don't historically. They lose value just at the same rate as running backs going on day 3 or rounds 4 through 7. If you don't produce at that lower draft capital, then sorry, it sucks to suck. You just don't have that same kind of protection. And if we're looking at this backfield in particular, like I'm just most worried about ETN because the only time we've seen him as a fantasy asset was based off of volume, not efficiency. And we're running into a potential scenario where he is not going to enjoy the same type of volume wherever he actually was productive, wherever he was going as a top 5 round startup pick or a top 3 round startup pick. Like it just doesn't happen. He's also on the wrong side of the age cliff at this point, and I highly doubt he's going to be in this same scenario come next year, which might help him a little bit. He might go to a place where he can have more value, but I don't look at him at all as a safe investment this time. And with all of the potential downfalls that are coming his way, I'm looking at somebody who doesn't need as many touches to have an impact on the game as the player that you want to be drafting. Sure, he's now going higher. I think a lot of it's also some of the hype here. And if he's already on your team, awesome. If we're getting to the point that we're going to have to spend end of round 1 rookie draft pick on him, I'm going to be a little bit more nervous. But if you already have him, that's great. And then if you wanted to cash out, you can. As we like to say, though, we like to score points, so you do not have to. I don't want us to say that you have to sell not ETN. Oh my gosh, you have to sell Tuten as soon as he's worth next year rookie first. Like, enjoy the points. I think that's definitely the player you need to be buying in this setup.
Yeah, it's like when we tout like a year 9 wide receiver, and when people like describing why they like the new team he's on, is like he's got pedigree. He was a round 1 pick. Enough. Like it's reaching to a point where like I don't remember where I was at the time he was a first round pick. Like I don't really care at that point. And then as it regards, I know we're going to talk more.
We're almost certainly in the exact same room you're currently in. I was podcasting with you, and I was in the basement with the wooden background. And I
was going to say not 9 years ago, but not 9 years ago, but when he was drafted, yes, when Etienne was drafted.
Etienne was drafted, yeah.
I think
miss your wood panel background.
I do too, because that means he was in Winnipeg. We'd be golfing together frequently, which upsets me that we're not. I will just say we have the touting of Etienne for all the things we just said. Well, he was a top 4 play. We're going to ignore the insane run of multiple touchdown gains that he had back to back to back. His increase in pass catching work coinciding with Trevor Lawrence's ankle injury and him not being as mobile as he was. Then there's the arguments for like Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby lost snaps to a special teamer because that's how much they viewed his high potential in the passing game. On top of the fact that Tank Bigsby showed his explosive high-end play for roughly 6 quarters, maybe 7, and then not a whole lot else for the rest of the year. He is the cheapest at cost. And then to the point of he's a day 3 pick. In the mentions today, somebody had mentioned like you might as well be Garendo. Well, if you care about production, like Garendo provided you more value when it mattered than Etienne did last year. So if you really want to look at it that way, and someone might say, no, Tom, you're crazy. Well, from week 14 on, right? Week 14, Travis Etienne, he scored 11, 12.5, 5.7, 8.5, and 9. Look at the guy like Garendo, 26.8, 11.5, missed week 16, and then like 13.9. So when you needed him the most, Garendo was the guy. Like it doesn't matter if the team's not using you, right? And that is what matters. And I'm sorry, but like Jakob mentioned, for the cost, like for me, now granted, we talked how many times I'm going to say something like this. Like, if you want to do it, take whoever's cheaper, then right now that's Tank Bigsby. Like that should be the guy that you're locked into. He's the cheapest to acquire. He's the cheapest to draft. He's the most available. He's also the most limited, in my opinion, in his skill set. So longest shot. All right. He should be the cheapest. The other two, again, negligible differences you want to have a little bit of all of them realistically. That's what makes an ambiguous backfield.
So where I maybe disagree with Ryan a bit is like, I think that you can make the argument for in best ball, especially like for Bigsby plus one of the others, like very easily. I think they serve different purposes in your role. They're also at very different prices. Etienne and Tuten go like at the exact same price and they're in the same backfield. So like you kind of do have to pick one. Like I know that you can like, I guess, take like 15% of each, but like it's kind of functionally impossible to have a massive stand on one and on the other. Like you just can't because they go at the same ADP and sometimes you don't need a running back. Whereas, yeah, Bigsby serves a very different purpose, especially in best ball. I don't think that there's much of a point to Tank Bigsby in Dynasty, personally. He doesn't catch any passes. I think that his most likely win scenario is that he is like the lead on the ground, splitting a lot of touches, though, probably still with one or both of the other two, and that they're then handling the pass catching. That's not really a running back I love starting in Dynasty. That's like kind of Gus Edwards-y, Deontay Foreman-y in Dynasty. Not my fave, but he's cheap, so it is what it is. But yeah, I think like, I don't really take him in best ball because I have a lot of conviction in Tuten, but I think like it's a totally viable bet at his cost.
Yeah, I do also want to just be clear. Bhayshul Tuten, I believe as of now is my highest drafted player on Underdog. I do not have much ETN. So yeah. I am also, yes, you're correct in that in practice, you have to kind of pick one or the other and take a stand. But I'm saying more so that I can like envision a team where I would rather click ETN. It's not going to be very many teams, though. It is right. More where I was going there.
Also, to say like, so on the market report,
I don't have 0%.
Like on market report, even this last week that released on Saturday, it's the second Dynasty Point show. If you're unfamiliar, that's on podcast version only with myself and Andy Buckler. We're talking about that you should be acquiring ETN. He's somebody that we always talk about when a player becomes a meme. Well, if ETN's being memed, you want to acquire, right? As cheaply as you can, and you never know. Because I always want to bet against the Twitter hive. I always want to even bet against myself at times. If he's cheap, go acquire. Absolutely, you should.
I think Tuten is getting memed right now. Is kind of
look at how many people fucking talk about the fumbles. I want every fucking person who brings up Bhayshul Tuten's clip this. Every fucking person who ever types anything in a chat, in a tweet about Bhayshul Tuten's fumbles has to fucking fax me a sworn affidavit that says that they knew about Bhayshul Tuten's fumble rate in college and that they had one single solitary thought about Bhayshul Tuten's fumbling problem before a week ago or whatever, when he fumbled one open bracket, digit 1, closed bracket time in a voluntary OTA practice. I swear to God that it was like brought up maybe twice total that I heard until a week ago. And now anytime someone doesn't like Bhayshul Tuten, they're just like, bro fumbles all the time. And it's like, that is actually true. He did fumble a lot in college, but I swear you only know that because of one report in like 90% of circumstance.
Yeah.
Right.
So this gets to my last point I really wanted to hit, which is another like life advice plus fantasy advice. Don't be a slave to the news cycle, guys. Like we see every single year, there are a handful of types of reports that get trotted out on the NFL calendar at basically the same time. X player fumbled in practice. It is a kind of a time-trusted one, or the alternate version is X player dropped a pass in practice. I'm not going to compare him to Jamar Chase. Ignore that I even said his name just now. But that is like a super easy one for a beat reporter to put into his column, and it's something people are going to talk about. It also, X player, X veteran looks good, and we like him is another one that's super easy for a coach to say. Doesn't necessarily actually mean anything about a workload or about how we should be projecting them. And I understand in today's social media age, we are constantly inundated with the headlines, with the news items. It's super easy. I get it, to pay attention and lock in on the ones that that back up your preconceived notions. Don't be a slave to the news cycle. Don't be a slave to confirmation bias, especially. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, that is definitely important as well. I just want to point out, somebody had mentioned just mentioned fumbles, which I thought it was funny. Even from an NFL team perspective, T-Law and front office both have incentive to boost ETN's trade value mid-season. Do you know how often that actually happens? How a move like that, like how a team is an NFL team's perspective is playing the best player that helps them. They don't care about getting
trade value. He's a running back on a 5th-year option. The trade value you're speaking is the difference between a 7th-round pick and a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, it's not.
I will say
it's
not so much boosting the trade value, but NFL teams don't have an incentive to shit talk their players generally. That's not something a coach wants to be seen doing. So I will defend the point in that direction, but yeah, continue.
I also want to note, some people might have not been for rookie stuff. I actually was not as high, if you remember J3, I was like not actually even as high on Tuten as the rest of, I think, most of the people on the podcast, certainly compared to Ryan. But still very high on him. In terms of are we convinced he's good? I mean, the answer to that is no. We're not convinced anyone is good, let alone a 4th-round rookie pick. But in terms of players in this class, had the 3rd highest missed tackles forced rate of any running back of the class per PFF charting, only behind Cam Skattebo and Ashton Genty. Also had an elite breakaway rate and an explosive run rate. So between breaking 5-yard chunk rates, 10-yard chunk rates, 15-yard chunk rates. And then yards after contact per attempt was up at 4.4. That only trailed Genty, Damian Martinez, rest in peace, Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson. So really, really strong analytical profiles of rusher in all the advanced stuff that I focus on. The reason I had him a little bit lower was in part the fumbling, ironically. And
Can
also,
we get a sworn affidavit?
Yeah, you can find it. It's in the Thinking About Thinking post from early April. my concerns on him was the unknowns were how big of a workload can he handle? He handled a moderate but not workhorse level workload at Virginia Tech. And what's the receiving upside? Because he didn't get a ton of opportunities in the receiving game. I think both of those are in a range that they're question marks. Definitely not red lights, but yellow lights. But as far as the upside profile is concerned, like there's a lot to really like about him. Not to mention the fact that he's fast as hell.
Yeah, and just to quickly piggyback off that, there is really no like player to backfield or player to coach or system fit that I'm more excited about in this class, and that's just because we know that Liam Cohn is kind of the master at, even if Tuten is more not really a bell cow profile, would need to be schemed work in the passing game, like isn't like a natural route runner or pass catcher. If all of that is true, I think Liam Cohn can still maximize that skill set. We've seen him do it with the designed work with players that were on his previous offenses. It's just the perfect type of player where his best clear skill is the explosive play stuff to just plug right into what Liam Cohn wants and has succeeded with in the past. I've been told that's pattern matching. Jakob can tell me if that's pattern matching, but I think that is that's like a legitimate part of the case for Tuten to me that I think is important.
No, it's not at all pattern matching. I mean, the pattern matching aspect would be if you're saying like, well, like Rachaad White hit, so Tuten must hit. But like it's a precedent that's important in a couple of ways. One, that they were an elite XFP backfield last year. And so it's easy to make a case that even if this ends up being a split backfield, there can be fantasy value here for someone. And that doesn't necessarily have to be Tuten. I mean, people bring up correctly that despite getting usurped over the second half of the season, Rachaad White was a very startable asset in fantasy for most of last year. And it's totally possible that Etienne could fill that role. And the other aspect is that, there are certain coaches who are more or less likely to give rookies opportunities more or less early. And it doesn't mean that Tuten's going to be as good as Bucky Irving. I think Bucky Irving is one of the most talented running backs in the league. But it's really encouraging that Liam Cohn was a play caller who saw what he had last year in Irving and immediately got him on the field. And by about halfway through his rookie season as a day 3 pick was like, okay, actually, you're our lead running back now. That's not every coach. It's very possible that Irving could have been just as good as he was and, doesn't get that opportunity that he got last year until like year 2 or year 3 or year 4. But Cohen was willing to see what was there and make changes. That doesn't mean that Tuten's going to be good enough to do that or that Etienne's going to play similarly to how White played, but it means that it is at least possible that if Tuten doesn't get opportunities all year, I'm laying that blame at his feet. I'm not saying that was predetermined because Cohen never gave him a chance. I think Cohen's going to give him a chance.
Right. So I think at the end of the day, to summarize, right, what matters and what doesn't, it matters when you get a young player who is explosive, who has a path to opportunity when you look at things objectively, and cost. Those are what matters in choosing an ambiguous backfield, in my opinion. And with that, we're going to talk different backfields that we are targeting on the other side of this break.
Real quick. Do you know how many fumbles Tuten lost in college?
3.
7, I think.
So, yes, 3 over the last. Well, at Virginia Tech, he had 10 total fumbles over his last 2 seasons at Virginia Tech. Lost only 2 of those fumbles.
Dang.
So he's really good at getting his fumbles recovered by teammates.
Yeah.
And
what are we complaining about?
There we go. I think that's a skill set. I don't know. That's just going to throw it out there.
Nice pull. I like that. All right, quick break. We come back. We're going to give you some backfields that we're targeting and a little bit on why. So if somehow you have not ordered yours, don't know that it exists still, merch is still up for now. Don't know how long it's going to be up, but you can go and get yours. We've got some new potential. We get some affidavit t-shirts cooking. I like that one. Fantasy dating advice is another strong option that we can add to possible rotations. But of course, you need to get your Forklift certified podcast t-shirt, which you can get at fantasypoints.com. I hit the wrong overlay, but that's okay. Let's talk. And we see some questions. Obviously, we have the Dynasty Q&A. We're going to wrap into some questions. So if you have ambiguous backfield questions, of course, let us know. We'll dive into them as we go here. So we are going to pick some backfields that aren't the Jaguars to continue to talk about today. We did for half an hour. And kind of just talk about why we're targeting these backfields. So I'll actually start with Lucas, who shockingly picked the Denver Broncos.
So I did pick the Denver Broncos.
To call this ambiguous, you're like reverse jinxing.
So I was looking at it first in terms of like what I believe the workload's going to be. And I don't think that's technically the right way that we were doing it. So I do have a backfield to point out here. But I do think with the Broncos right now, I think like the value is very set in terms of who's going to be the starter, who the fantasy community is the highest on. But don't forget that Sean Payton likes to have a committee backfield. And the only other running back right now who has a skill set vastly different than RJ Harvey that's on the roster is Audric Estime, and he is almost free at this point. So want to throw that out there. I think it's going to be ambiguous workload. It's not ambiguous value. Ambiguous value backfield, though, has to be the Tennessee Titans. We're looking at, and Tony Pollard is RB33 with Tyjae Spears coming in as RB39. So two very closely drafted running backs. One of them had the workload, had the role for most of last season, and was really productive in it. Tyjae Spears was helping people get to the playoffs routinely. He is still going very cheap. I think he's going to be somebody that you want on your rosters, especially if you're competing. You want to be targeting him. But whenever Tyjae Spears, towards the end of the season, Pollard was banged up and he was able to actually come in and be the guy, he was still really productive from a fantasy standpoint. His efficiency, we're not going to talk about that right now. But he was really good whenever he got his touches. He had 3 touchdowns in the final 3 weeks of the season, and that buoyed his value or his production in 2 of those games. And then the other one, he was just really freaking good. This should be an ascending offense. They can't be as bad as they were last season, I hope. Just logically, it doesn't make sense. They should be seeing more scoring opportunities. This is a backfield, I think, whether you're chasing upside and you're needing a cheaper person to hopefully have, a higher increase of value going into next season, or if you're wanting a running back that's cheaper to be producing for you now, this is the running back room you need to be targeting.
Yeah, I mean, fair. A lot of options. There are some Tony Pollard doubters out there. A lot of people that'll discuss the injuries that held Spears back, right? So definitely out there. Values are pretty dang similar. Not bad. Let's go to Ryan, because it doesn't look like he's writing a tweet.
Does it normally look like I'm writing a tweet?
No, I just saw Jakob typing away.
I look like I'm writing a tweet.
Yeah.
I was writing a DM.
Oh, okay.
Jacob's writing a DM
I was sending a trade
Trevor
offer
Lawrence
over
at
Hinge.
311 in the startup that we're in right now.
Did they? I tried to trade for that pick too. For fuck's sakes.
Yeah. So Trevor Lawrence officially too expensive for me once again.
I was so close to taking him at my last pick when I took Tet McMillan. I debated it for like an hour. I lied about having work to do. I was just sitting there pondering whether to take Trevor or Tet. And then I was desperately trying to trade up for him, but clearly I was unsuccessful. So
you can tell that it hurts you, actually. And you and Ryan kind of matching shirt colors here. You guys should be working as a team. I mean, it looks green.
Solid green.
This is green. Mine's gray. But they share the first 3 letters.
I mean, to me, they both look green. So maybe I'm the problem. I don't know. Did we just find out that I'm colorblind? I'm not sure, but they both look
really
similar.
Pissed at Ron
Chat,
right now.
do their shirts look similar? Let us know. Am I crazy? I don't know. But Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I'm glad Lucas gave such a good overview of the Titans backfield because I wanted to pick them, but I figured people were sick of hearing me specifically talk about Tony Pollard. So I went with like the more expensive version kind of the Titans backfield, but maybe the more worthwhile version, which is the Cardinals. James Conner kind of needs no introduction. That this man just won't die. He just keeps putting up fantasy points every single year. No matter how old or how washed we think he is, he just keeps doing it, and he looks absolutely great every single time.
Cancer couldn't stop this man. Age won't.
Yeah, honest to God, I don't want to like put this in the universe and like
God into this?
Yeah, we are bringing God into this. I don't want to put this in the universe and jinx this man, but like I feel like James Conner is almost like our generation's Frank Gore. Like it's going to get there at some point.
That could be. That makes sense, actually. Yeah.
I did call him fantasy football's cockroach. Like he's gonna survive a nuclear winter. He's gonna be the running back left standing.
Yeah. James Conner notably drafted very close to where Bhayshul Tuten was drafted. Very fun fact. Was in that data. Different day.
So it's actually very different.
Yes.
Doesn't count.
But yes, Cardinals backfield. What do we care about here? A team and an offense that is going to commit to the run if they can. The last 2 years, they have ranked 30th and 17th in pass rate over expectation. They were a little pass heavier at the end of last year, but I don't necessarily think that that's like the identity they want. So definitely an offense that can hold a productive running back. Connor's kind of going like right in the 10th, 11th round of startups, like right at the end of your start 10 lineup. He's just kind of a perfect little like year one contending piece to slot in there and probably get you pretty decent production. Trey Benson going very close to him in startups as well. Probably the best like non-rookie running back in terms of I'm going to click them and hope his value just shoots up in Dynasty. That's entirely possible. If Connor does break down and we just see Benson get most of the full workload, I don't think he's necessarily going to get the passing game stuff. It's never great when you're losing snaps to Amari DiMercato. But aside from that,
definitely a future 5 for 5 clue, by the way.
Amari DiMercato, I look forward to the day
that's happening.
Yeah. But yeah, Benson is kind of like the total opposite of Connor from like a dynasty perspective, an asset perspective, where he nowhere close to like guaranteed points or anything like that, but kind of a decent like bargain bin. I'm really value hunting and like just desperately wanting to increase the value of my roster. It's a decent bet. Ambiguous backfields are a good place to look for that, especially if one of them's young.
I love that. I love that pull. I'm going to go with the New York Football Giants. Look, I know it can be shocking. Not as shocking as like Tracy Morgan giving the NBA on TNT an FCC violation like immediately when they threw him a question back in the day. If you have not seen that clip, please search Tracy Morgan on NBA on TNT. You will not be disappointed. Absolutely wild. But what is wild to me is that a running back like Cam Skattebo can't be good in the passing game because he looks like a fullback. In fact, I actually think he's better than Tyron Tracy Jr. is as a pass-catching weapon, which is why I like that backfield. On top of that, the price isn't as destructive to your roster as you might think. He's an RB26. He's right on that cusp, that type of asset we want to take a shot on in startup costs. He's also cost a mid to late round second in rookie drafts if you want to look at costs that way. And for the most part, people are trying to yeet Tyron Tracy Jr. off their roster if you want to acquire because of Cam Skattebo. And Tyron Tracy Jr., for him being a what day pick, did pretty damn well at taking over for the veteran that they paid the money to. So there's no way that they would give him the job in the ghost of Devin Singletary. So both players, in my opinion, can have roles. Both players can succeed. You can take your pick on which player you want at whatever value. You can take whoever's cheaper if you want to, or you can hunker yourself down and make that bet. It is a young upstart team in terms of their offense. We have a potential to add a running quarterback at some point. Again, how many games will Jackson Dart play? We don't know. We have our predictions. I'm sure we're going to make a bet about it. I'm saying he probably starts by like week 3. Some other people say he plays 8 games, whatever. So does he get the boost of a rushing quarterback and how it helps their efficiency? Who knows? But both of these backs are young. Maybe some questions about explosiveness, whatever roles. All we know is that Cam Skattebo is a baller. Scott Barrett loves him because aside from just straight line speed, which I think is overrated anyway, he can do everything. And Tyron Tracy going into his second year, even though he'll be like 31 years old in his second year, doesn't bode super well for long-term dynasty value. We're talking about an asset that goes significantly down in dynasty startups. So I'm not really too worried about putting my eggs in that basket and having it not pan out, which to me is part of finding the ambiguous backfields that have that big swing upside. So I feel Tyron Tracy at RB 31. He goes right before Zach Charbonnet, like just after James Conner, ETN, and just before guys like Tuten and Pollard and Benson, and another player we're going to talk about. All of our running back rooms that we've chosen really all do go within the same 2 rounds. So that's my case for the Giants. That's why I'm just picking them up wherever I can. So Jacob, hit us with
One of my favorite
backfield.
One of my favorite things about your pick, the Giants, is that I think of most of these ambiguous backfields, that's the one where I think it's easiest to envision either player being a total workhorse while the other player is literally nothing.
Yes.
Like I think in several of these circumstances, it's going to be some form of a split, and it's a matter of like what the split is, or with Arizona's case, it's probably like if someone's the workhorse, it's clearly Connor. And the only way that happens for Benson, like if Benson, that's either a split or it's Connor gets hurt. But like Skattebo could be absolutely nothing. He's a round 4 running back. And I also think it wouldn't be that surprising if Skattebo like was really good. And then Tracy was just completely nothing. Like both these guys can kind of do a bit of everything. And neither of them are good enough that you really see them as a complete roadblock to the other. So I think that the upside is actually quite high. Even though they should both be valued pretty similarly, that could very much not be the case soon.
Yeah,
that would have been the one that I would have picked for that reason, but Tom picked it first. So I picked the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings won 14 games last year. And in my opinion, they got an upgrade at quarterback. They certainly upgraded their offensive line. And there are only 3 teams that currently have no running back going in the top 32 in Dynasty ADP. It's the Cowboys, who have like the most depressing backfield I've ever seen in my life. What was the other one? There's another one. I'm forgetting it off the top of my head, but I think it's a bad team. It's the Titans, who was also a good pick, but not projected quite as well. And it's the Vikings, who I think like are definitely going to score a lot of points this year and are going to be able to run the ball a good amount this year. And neither obviously has a lot of value upside in Dynasty between Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. But I think there's a pretty darn good chance that one of these guys, potentially both of these guys, are starters for you as RB2s and flexes. And both of them should be acquirable for like in the range of late 2, early 3. Definitely guys I'm looking at if I need to patch a hole on the cheap in Dynasty.
I love your points. I just wanted to address this. If you want to chase Karens, I got lots of thirds for you. That's why we always trade for thirds. That's where you get your Bucky Irvings last year. And this is where we talk about the hits are just so much more. This is your Chase Browns from 2 years ago. You should be chasing these guys 100%. That's why we always talk about in trade negotiations, always ask for a third. When they send you an offer, can you add in a third? Could you kick in a third? Right? This is why you do that, because guess what you could trade Chase Brown for last year, and look where Bucky Irving, the hits just separate so much more. And we'll just answer this one now. It still is Zay Flowers over Skattebo and Dynasty by by a billion. Just thought that we'd answer that one quick because it popped up. I like all these picks. I mean, I have drafted quite a bit of Mason, like for the Vikings, so I love that pick. He is not a player that's been talked about a lot in this cycle. It's just been Aaron Jones. Granted, Mason was kind of jaggy, right, in an elite rushing offense, but I mean, he was still very, very good for your fantasy teams.
He do anything in the passing game, so he does need the volume for sure.
Right. So, but if he does get it, I mean, I'm happy to put him into my RB2 slot on a ton of really, really nasty, grimy, fat ass running back teams that I naturally have because I podcast and co-host teams with Andy Buckler. Like that is our dream scenario to slot Mason. All right, those are the backfields. Those are the backfields we're targeting. Those are the backfields we think are ambiguous, including Jacksonville, obviously. So when we come back, if you got questions, we don't have that many. So if you got dynasty questions, whether it's startup trades, backfields, what have you, get them in before we shut it down, the podcast version, and head to 5 for 5. Sit tight. All right, it's Dynasty Q&A. Let's get into it. First off, going all the way back, not a question, but I need a Bill Simmons impression from Jakob about how Belichick's 19-year-old girlfriend actually doesn't matter.
I mean, we got these ridiculous journalists like Ryan Heath trying to dine out on this story, and it's ridiculous. I mean, can you give it a fucking rest? What are we doing here? So what? The 74-year-old guy wants to get fucking laid, okay? He's not sending out some fucking Hinge messages with keep trade cut offers. I mean, give it a fucking rest. Let the man live his life. He's a legend.
Well done.
I will be honest, that started out closer to like Donald Trump than it did to Bill Simmons, but I loved it.
It got there.
8.5 out of 10.
Took a bit. Went to warm into it.
You know, he went in cold. He went in cold. Just so you know, that he was in emergency Bill Simmons podcast form there. So it's a little different.
I had totally forgotten
regular.
To get called on that. Didn't prep.
Rare Twitter question.
Rookie 109 and Superflex.
Right. So let's just talk about.
Take your highest ranked player.
I'll say. Well, let's. Well, look, I'll say I've clicked a lot. I've honestly been avoiding a lot of the tight ends, and this doesn't say tight end premium, but we'll usually only play in tight end premium. I've actually not clicked a lot of Warren and Loveland at that spot like I have in years past for tight ends. I've clicked a lot of Ibuka at 1.9 just to secure that wide receiver, and then sometimes a guy like Judkins will fall like that. I will say I'm not reaching at 109 in Dynasty Superflex rookie draft simply because I need a specific position. Like I would not reach for a Jackson Dart just because I might need a quarterback. I'm still going to play that board.
Yeah, I think like I have it as a pretty tight tier. Judkins rarely makes it there, so you're probably looking at one of the tight ends or Harvey or Ibuka. And I have them tight enough that for me, especially if you play in multiple leagues, like I think it's actually fine to just draft kind of on positional need between those three players or three positions, I guess. You could take either of the tight ends. I wouldn't consider the tight ends at 109 in a non-premium. I would be firmly Harvey or Ibuka in non-premium personally, but I think it'd be fine to take the tight ends there.
100%. The chat wants us to clip that one and take notes. So hopefully
that wasn't even my best Simmons. I actually feel like I left some on the table there. I was on a roll on the ship chasing draft night, which is I suspect where this originated from, where I was doing a lot of Simmons impressions. So I'll work that in. I promise I'll do better next time, but I'm glad people liked it.
All right. They're gonna hold you to that now.
Yeah.
Cooper, definitely a name. Nice Lake. Left a comment. Just made this trade. Gave Rhamondre for Ladd and Njoku in a 10-team Superflex PPR tight end premium start 10. How are we feeling with this one here?
I mean, I feel good about it. I feel like the market has caught up. I feel like when I first started doing the Ladd over Marvin thing, everybody was hating it. I mean, now I'm seeing Twitter debates of whether Ladd is better than BTJ and Neighbors. Ladd McConkey, the startup that Ryan and I keep talking about. Ladd McConkey went up to 203.
Yeah, I was really mad that a lot of the wasted trade negotiations of me trying to get to 301 for Ladd was very quickly extinguished there.
So, you know, I feel like time has really vindicated my early Ladd McConkey bullishness to the point that I don't even know if I would consider myself high on Ladd at this point, but I definitely like this side of the deal.
Yeah, I think all of us would agree with that one there. D-Walk also says he'll add no league, only Dynasty Best Ball unless he finds ways to do Dynasty Point Startup. Gonna have to be in the Discord for that one. Link will be in the description.
I don't like Best Ball leagues, personally.
I can't stand Dynasty Best Ball. I got bullied into one, and I regret it.
It's a very, very different game.
Yeah, I regret it every single day. There's something about knowing that you're gonna make the wrong decision every single week that just helps cripple you in depression when it really matters. Like when I didn't play Njoku against our good friend Austin Coombs for a trip to the finals on the line, and it cost me by roughly 9 points in the semifinals because I thought he was hurt, and I made the clear wrong decision as he absolutely nuked in that league, and it cost. There's no substitute for that in best balls, that feeling of it, or knowing that you made the right call.
To me, it's three things that make me like lineup leagues better. One is exactly that. Like, I just find that the sweat is way better for two reasons. Like, one is just, like I love to feel like I'm having an influence on a weekly basis into my lineup. It's also just frankly way easier to track. Like, if you're actually trying to track if you're winning or not in a best ball dynasty on Sunday, it's like impossible. You're like looking down at the bench to see how many players have left to play. It's just not a fun sweat. Also, I think I said I do have three reasons. Yeah. One is like, in theory, a bunch of best ball leagues should be easier to manage when you are in so many leagues. But I actually need that process of setting my lineup to like remind myself where my team is at. Whereas like I find with a lot of my best ball teams, I just don't touch them because I know I don't have to do anything to the lineup. And then they just kind of get shitty because I am not looking at it as often. And so I just let it atrophy in a way that I don't with my managed leagues. And the third is that I think one of the things that almost all of the like micro edges that I can think of and how I play Dynasty apply only to manage. Like I think a lot of the ways that people prioritize, sort of floor-based plays and projection-based plays at the expense of ceiling-based plays, like in best ball, it is kind of the reverse. You actually do want to look at players on a more linear level. You like a player like a Romeo Dobbs, Alec Pierce, etc. Those players have like actually a lot of value in best ball formats, and like that's fine. I feel like it just kind of takes away the edges that I like to employ. So I don't think I actually am as good at it.
Yeah, I think you said it really well there. Again, if I could get, unfortunately, I commish one of them. I'm in 2 Dynasty bet. I commish one. Can't really get out of that one. I need like 7 managers to drop out of that league at once so I can justify not having any more. The other one I got straight up bullied into. I got ego child. I basically got told to 1v1 me, bro, and I fell for it. And now I'm just donating money into that league every year. Love that. We have a question for Jacob Calloway. Is Dallas ambiguous? I would say yes. I think there's
probably the most ambiguous.
Yes.
It's also the most likely to have no winners, but it is very ambiguous.
It is the most ambiguous and probably the most confusing.
I want to trot out my take from last year on the Dallas backfield that I guess kind of ended up being wrong, but is this a backfield that's going to produce a lot of fantasy value, period? And that take was correct for like the first 7 weeks until Dak got hurt and they just were like, okay, we're going to run the ball and not win games. And that did produce some fantasy value for Rico Dowdle.
It was also correct while they were still like insisting on 35 to 40% of snacks for Zeke for like no fucking reason.
Yeah. So that's like that would be like my initial Dallas backfield take. If I have to click one, I'm gonna click Jaden Blue. I'm gonna click the rookie. Wow, very original, Ryan.
Hey, I mean, Miles Sanders in the 18th round of best ball drafts, buddy. Let's fucking go. I mean, come on. I have 27% Miles Sanders in best ball.
Do you actually? That's I can't just. I don't know. Is that worse than me having like 20% Daniel Jones in the last round of
No,
ball?
I drafted a lot of Daniel Jones.
Okay.
I mean, my take on Miles Sanders is just like I don't think there's actually a difference in bet between Sanders and Javonte. Like to me, it's like if you want to bet on if the answer is not Jaden Blue and it's one of the boring, horrible, cooked veterans, they're like equally terrible to me. I don't really see a reason why Javonte should be a 10th round pick and Miles should be an 18th round pick. Like, I think either way, you're just betting on like a complete volume sponge. I think the most interesting answer is Jaden Blue. It's just like, it's hard for me to say someone's a worse bet than Rico Dowdle was last year because he was like a 5th-year player who'd done literally nothing ever. But he was at least, like, in theory, athletic and like the cromulent size to be an actual running back. I don't think he was ever in a million years going to be like the intentional lead back for a team outside of the specific circumstances that arose last year, but it was theoretically possible. Blue might just be Nyheim Hines. I think he probably is just Nyheim Hines. And I think this backfield probably winds up being like one or both of Miles and Javonte, like just being fucking disgusting on early downs. And then Blue like kind of Hinesing his way, and they're all kind of useless outside of best ball. But I've taken a lot of Jaden Blue and rookie drafts in the 3rd round.
I will say, if you do have an open taxi spot, put Phil Maffa on there.
Yes. Yep.
That's somebody who was so banged up throughout college, just consistently. But whenever we'll start talking about the 2026 class at some other time, that's much further down the road. But whenever Clemson was just awful over the last 2 seasons on offense, because there were times that they were just dreadful, Phil Maffa carried that team, and that's why he was so banged up, because he took every single like ounce of punishment that offensive line would give him. And so he just kept giving him the ball. So I think that he's a very interesting stash on your taxi. And if he doesn't make the roster, you move right along. I hope
he's
that
my favorite because he's free.
Yeah, I hope Jaden Blue's the right answer there. That's the most fun one out of all these possible scenarios, as you all said. But if you have an open taxi spot, Film Office should be on your taxi.
Totally
agreed. Gogo Jin says you don't need dating advice when you smash Egbuka at 1-4 in Dynasty rookie drafts, but I digress. Rashad White is coming for his rifle thrown in the backfield. We will take what do we do? Analysts versus chat bets for charity. It's something we can open things up to and experiment with. I like that. Bruce has a question for Lucas. Want to follow up with Lucas' inquiry in the Broncos backfield. Is Estime or McLaughlin guys we should stash?
So I think it has to be Estime, and that's that's the player that has the most buzz right now coming out of all of these training camps so far. Is there's going to be a very clear established role that if this Broncos offense is going to function the way that Sean Payton wants it to function, then Audric Estime has to play a role in that. He has to be the short yardage guy. He's going to be the guy on the goal line. And if this is a high scoring offense, he's going to have many opportunities to fall into the end zone. A perfect scenario, or best case scenario for Audric Estime, we're looking at potentially double-digit touchdowns because he's coming on, poaching them from RJ Harvey, or Denver can't actually establish the red zone passing like they couldn't last year. They just weren't good in the red zone at getting touchdowns out of the passing game. So Estime looks better as the season went on. He's the person that you should be getting, and he's basically free. He's going to be a very easy throw-in for a lot of teams when you're doing your trade. So I think Audric Estime is the guy you want.
All right. Left nut of Exodia.
Now I know it's June, where we've gotten 2 questions in which people are asking if we should trade a much higher valued wide receiver for a running back. That's how I know we're no longer in May. We flipped the calendar. People want to trade DK Metcalf for James Conner. The the summer community has entered the chat.
Yeah, and that's no, by the way. We keep DK Metcalf on the rosters for sure.
Whenever you can have theoretical value that's theoretically worth a late first and is going to score 11.7 points per game, that's the name of the game in Dynasty. You got to keep that value there.
D-Walk, just making a comment on third round running backs was Zamir White, Davis Price, Pierre Strong, Ford. The 6 RBs drafted before Kyron in 2022. I got thirds for you. I'll take them because Ford, you definitely could use him. Zamir White was definitely usable and tradable for a second at one point. I mean, you take swings and misses in the thirds, man. And the more you have, the more dart throws you get. Superflex start 10 plus a DST. Womp womp womp. Quarterbacks are Goff, May, AR, gross, Dart. Are we sitting tight or trying to tier up here? Not having Anthony Richardson on your roster would be the most ideal, probably, but I digress.
Putting him away lately, it ain't easy.
We outlined how to do it on Market Report this last week. Getting out of the title of the episode is Getting Out of Pickardson. So,
was that accomplished, or did we just have a lot of theoretical trades?
Oh no, we got it done. Yeah, no, we got it done. Okay. I'll try to pull up that show sheet from Andy and I.
27-3 or.
No, I think it was a legitimate asset.
Okay, that's encouraging. I mean, I think it'd be nice to find a way to, in theory, package Goff with one of the other two and get a sexier name there. I don't know how easy that is to actually accomplish in reality, but yeah, that'd be what I would try to do if you could.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like I don't have anything helpful to add there, but yeah, it'd be good if you could.
Muhammad wants to know trade.
Yeah,
Marvin
I would do
Harrison
that.
Jr. trade.
Amon-Ra side, yes.
Yeah, we want Amon-Ra St.
Yeah,
Brown. He is.
Can we sub out Liget for a third round pick though or something?
Yeah, we don't want him.
I don't need his ass. I do
At
love
all.
Dollar Bill though.
He's a great personality.
He's the best.
Don't want him on my dynasty teams. Ron Stewart wants to know, how does Trevor Lawrence end up as a top 15 startup pick in a year from today? Yeah,
I promise I'll take good care of him.
It's if Jakob gets sole control over everybody's ADP and what they use, he'll be a top 15, or he rushes for 850 yards on top of being the QB1 by 150 points, I imagine would be what it takes. Because if quarterbacks are bad at all, we're just going to see 6 wide receivers get added to the first round of dynasty startups at this rate. Pretty nuts. I'm sure that was tongue in cheek given the startup you guys are in with Ron. If you're not subbed to Ron Stewart,
won't even give me a chance to trade him. Just rude and offensive.
Ron has started a dynasty channel over on YouTube, which I have been obviously checking out. We are locked into Ron Stewart's content. So shout out to Ron and the dynasty channel growing quick over on YouTube. You should hit that subscription. I think we have a comment here. Cheese backfield is fairly ambiguous. Yeah, in kind of a gross way. 100%.
Right.
John Atlas says Lawrence has to go 2024 Burrow, but also hope May and Caleb don't smash as well. I think that's probably a legitimate answer that I could have given, maybe.
That is a legitimate answer, yeah.
Tyler says, what's good? What's good with you, Tyler?
5, Tyler and Ron. Stick around, boys.
Testimonials from Dynasty Dave, TD, on Ron's Dynasty channel. I think that's it for questions. I think we can go right in.
5 time?
For the audio listeners, we love you. We appreciate you. If you want 5 for 5, you got to head over to YouTube. I know we got comments on how podcast listeners feel disrespected. We got to have a little incentive to drive people over to the YouTube channel to watch me continue to absolutely cook and dominate in 5 for 5, which I look forward to doing again. So sit tight on YouTube. We're going to be right back. So as you can see, this is not the one that was supposed to be updated because your wonderful host has no sense of the ability to upload an appropriate graphic. So here we are, as I stall for enough time, just because I am so passionate. There it is. The win total goes up live on air like I totally planned to have it. Totally meant to do that. I have increased my win total to 7. The chat and the Gremlins still reside at 1, tied with Ryan Heath, who had the first win of the season. He's in an offer like the Colorado Rockies right now. Although the Rockies did win their first series of the year and now sit at 10-50, which still blows my mind for a professional sports team. Lucas Gilbert, also known as the Cheater, as a shocking 2 wins here on 5 for 5. I have been told that today's 5 for 5 will be frustrating once more. And we have been guaranteed that, I've been corrected, 11-50. Shout out the Rockies. I've been guaranteed that Easton Stick is not in the answer pool. Of course, we are minimizing the chat. We must minimize the chat. I am actually removing it from the overlay because I did not do that for the first one last week. Apparently, figured that out the hard way. We closed the chat option over here.
Wouldn't have mattered. Ryan was fucking
Ryan crushed that one.
I still can't believe
he was nailing Jericho
Cotchery.
Cotchery all on his own.
I cannot believe you got Jericho Cotchery and then did nothing else the rest of the.
No, he got 2 in a row.
I did get another.
Yeah, Austin.
It
was actually a competitive one.
Yeah,
right.
The fact that last week
he
with these
away an incredible lead,
with all of the obscure hints that Jakob is giving about geographic locations, and you all didn't let it go past 3 hints, is incredibly impressive.
Well,
I have to give it to the other guys on the show. That was absolutely killer.
Let's also not forget the absolute blunder that Lucas made at the end of the show, trying to stack the deck against your defending champion and gave away what school it was while I was struggling to figure it out, ultimately screwing himself over. Also, shout out to me last week for using the name that Jakob should have picked to answer his question. I should have been a shoo-in to absolutely sweep the impossible last question, but for some reason his mind went to Alec Ingold and not the GOAT, Peyton Manning. So shout out, should have had it, was screwed. But that's last week's 5 for 5 that I won. Let's dive into this week.
I've never seen somebody complain so much about winning.
Yeah, complaining about the win for a solid 30 seconds.
Well, when you're a champion,
especially after you just got a compliment about it too. Holy cow!
When you're a champion, Ryan, right? You expect perfection. As a Patriots fan, you should understand this.
As William Shakespeare once said in The Tempest, "What's past is prologue," and
we're so screwed.
Tom's victory is history, and history is the theme of today's 5 for 5.
Oh.
So if you like the start of 5 for 5's turn to its Sporkle era in geography last week, we've moved 1 down on the Trivial Pursuit playing card. All of these names that we're discussing today are in some way, shape, or form tied to a historical figure or some sort of historical element that is going to be referenced in the clues. So enjoy this. We got a little bit of a merger of football and the historical. As always, the rules are the same they are every week. If you're new, I'm going to give out 5 clues. I'm going to give out points in descending order. 5 if you get it on the first, and so on. The chat cannot win a tie. The chat has to get the answer alone on a clue. If the people playing get it on the same clue, they win the tiebreaker. I only accept up to 3 total chat guesses per clue and only 1 from each person per clue. Your 4th guess, your 2nd individual, they will go down to the next clue. All right. Let's rock and roll. Our first player shares his last name with a president. Sadly, his manifest destiny might be to remain on the bench.
His last name.
I don't know.
I know it. I have to think of the player though.
Chad has got it.
Oh, damn it.
I don't know.
There are
US
a few. There are a
presidents.
few answers that have presidential names, but the clue is helpful.
Yeah.
Can you repeat it one more time?
I'll repeat the clue.
I've got it. It's
This
sorry.
player
It's,
shares the last name with the president. Sadly, his manifest destiny might be to remain on the bench.
it's Jalen Polk.
That's correct for 5 points.
Fuck.
For Ryan Heath.
I don't know why I thought of John
What's the
Tyler
president's
first,
name?
But yeah,
What's the
it
president's-
was
Polk,
James Polk.
who
Oh,
led
I don't know
America
that.
into I think it was the Mexican-United States War, and was a big believer in manifest destiny and the Jacksonian tradition.
I have no
I will
idea.
shout out Macho Man Zandy.
Which means like we're taking over the entirety
like
of
killing
the continent.
every
We're
single non-white
we're-
Is this
person.
we're
history
killing all
or
of the
geog-
natives, and we are getting to the West Coast. That's manifest.
Yeah,
destiny.
that is exactly what it is. Yeah.
All right.
Macho Man Zandy did get it immediately. Shout out to Macho Man Zandy. But Ryan opens up with 5 points in this one.
I thought
All
it was
right.
going to be something like a Parker Washington or like
Well, yeah, that is another U.S. presidential name for sure.
well, I know that
That
one.
would have been valid. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't do
Unfortunately, he's a
politics,
much better
so I don't
player
know.
than James K. Polk. So,
Man, I'm telling that to Twitter
Good
last
job,
year.
Brian.
yeah. All right, here we go.
Ryan again getting
Next
the
one up.
first answer, by the way. This is like
Yeah, Ryan's a quick starter, but he's a choker.
Yeah. It's don't.
Okay.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
he's the New York Knicks.
All right, here we go. This is a long clue, so everybody lock in, okay? This player's first name is shared with one of the most revered conquerors in history. His last name happens to describe something required by any general of the era. This one's was named the Mora. I'll repeat that. This player's first name is shared with one of the most revered conquerors in history. Happens to describe something required by any conqueror of the era. This one's was named the Mora.
Okay, I'm going to guess Julius Chestnut.
That is incorrect, but a very fascinating guess.
Alexander Madison.
Also incorrect.
I will
Tom, you got
wait.
anything?
I will wait.
All right. I'm going to give the chat like a second, but I'm not seeing anything from the chat yet that is correct. I've seen a couple of guesses so far, but I know there's a lag. I'll give the chat another few seconds. All right. Calling it. Sorry, chat. We're going to wait on the next clue here. Okay. Today he wears 28, but in college he wore the first digit of the year of his namesake's famous victory at the Battle of Hastings.
What the hell? I
I'll
don't
repeat
know.
both clues.
I should
This
know
player's
when the
first
Battle of
name
Hastings
is shared
was.
with one of the most revered conquerors in history. His last name happens to describe something required by any conqueror of the era. This conqueror's one was named the Mora. Then, today he wears 28. In college, he wore the first digit of the year of his namesake's famous victory in the Battle of Hastings.
I thought I knew it, and now I'm.
Oh my God.
So...
Just
Oh
got
my
it. Just got
God.
it. I'm going to give you guys 10. I'm going to give you guys a 10 count.
Wow.
I don't even know if I
Oh,
can confidently
we're waiting on
tell you
Tom.
which
Tom
continent
has
the
to
Battle
pass
of
her
Hastings
guess.
was on.
Oh yeah, Tom gets first guess. Okay, you got 5 seconds. If you don't guess in 5, then the other two can have a shot at it. 3, 2, 1. Thomas.
Shipley.
Correct.
It's a
William
ship.
the Conqueror needed a ship. His ship was named the Mora, and won the Battle of Hastings in 1066.
Good job, Tom.
War number. Yeah. I'm telling
War number
you,
1 in
I hate these questions so much. And
All right.
as we signed on, I just want to talk about this because I have a reason to. As we signed on, I was telling these guys, and what I opened the show with, and what I was watching. I have been watching videos on YouTube about ancient conquerors, and that one came up a few days ago. So shout out.
It holds a special place in my heart because the first time I ever beat my parents in Trivial Pursuit,
Yes.
the final answer was who led the victorious forces at the Battle of Hastings, which of course is William the Conqueror. So shout out to my mom and dad, Dave and Andrea. You guys got pwned in Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit, for people that don't know, was a board game. A board game is something that you would play as a family.
No, we have Trivial Pursuit in
young
America.
people may not know.
I didn't know you guys didn't have
that.
butter tarts until last Christmas. So who's to say?
What?
I don't know what a butter tart is. Yeah.
Yeah. This was a big thing. All right. Okay, so we got 4 points for Tom. We got 5 points for Ryan. All right. Our journey through history continues. Okay. This player shares an exact name with this historical figure who was killed in 1779 in his exploration to modern-day Hawaii by an indigenous tribe.
Oh.
Yeah, no, not getting that one.
James Cook.
5 points for Ryan.
Wow.
And I will shout out he's
Captain
got
Cook,
points
the
for
Cooks.
losing the tiebreakers, but Ryan 0008, which I think is just Ryan's burner. He's gotten the last two in the chat at the same time that Ryan has.
Really?
So,
Wow.
It wasn't the tiebreaker rule. The chat would be
Let me look at the
points.
chat
They're
here.
doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan
I
Sims
see
is a
you.
phenomenal
I see you,
answer,
fake
Tyler.
Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'll butter your tart. I'm gonna close the chat again.
I didn't even need to check the chat to see that was Tyler.
Cow.
Yeah, these are tough, man. These are tough.
All right, 10, and yet we've only gotten to the second clue once. So
I was
10
thinking
points for Ryan.
of James. I was thinking of James, like Kirk, because the name was sticking with Star Trek.
Captain
for me,
Kirk,
but,
Yeah, I have more history clues. Like we haven't even gotten into the like that one. The second clue. Is
I want to
surveyed
hear
map
your
of the
second
St. Lawrence
clues.
River, which flows into the lake bordering this player's current NFL team. So,
Yeah, I don't know
Some
any of this
geography going. That's your
Okay.
country, Tom. You should know where the St. Lawrence is. Come on.
Yeah, I have no idea.
All right.
I can tell you how good the Montreal Expos were in '94, though.
Speaking of our country, this player's last name is shared with the Prime Minister of Canada during World War I. But most Americans might associate this last name with a singer whose last single was a duet with Lady Gaga.
Wait, repeat the clue?
Yeah. All right. This player's last name is shared with the Prime Minister of Canada during World War I.
Amari Cooper.
Or I want to make sure that he actually got a piece of World War I. No, sorry. I'm going to repeat the question because I was actually incorrect.
Okay.
This player's last name is shared with the Prime Minister of Canada during the Great Depression, but most Americans would associate it with a singer whose last single was a duet with Lady Gaga. I will let you re-guess since I stated the question wrong, even though there was no Prime Minister named Cooper during World War I.
Okay.
But,
Well,
but I will let you re-guess.
Okay.
All right.
Like re-guess a
singer
different
with Lady
person. You're
Gaga
giving me a free
and
guess.
Canadian past Prime Minister.
Okay.
The clue. I'm pretending you never made the Amari Cooper
All right.
guess because
That works.
I made a mistake in the clue. See you.
Are they still in the league?
I don't have to say that.
Yeah.
I was just because the only thing.
I mean, you know the rules of 5 for 5. The players could always either still be in the league or not still be in the league. I'm not going to tell you which.
Okay, can I
probably will eventually if we get it.
Can I make a guess?
Yes,
It's
of course.
Stetson Bennett.
That's not correct. All right. William the Conqueror was one of these, a British monarchic title ranking one rung above a Viscount, and happens to be the first name of this former NFLer.
Duke Johnson.
Incorrect.
Oh, that's a good guess.
Holy cow, that's good. Oh.
Lucas would have to guess before Tom, since Tom guessed last round.
I'm so blank. Holy cow.
I'll read both the clues again. All right. His last name is shared with the Prime Minister of Canada during the Great Depression, but most Americans would associate this name with a singer whose last single was a duet with Lady Gaga. William the Conqueror was one of these, a British monarchic title ranking one rung above a Viscount, and it happens to be the first name of this NFLer. Chad has not got it yet. Anything, Lucas?
Is it? I'm going to say Bishop Sankey, but I know that Bishop.
Also a great guess. It is
Yes,
incorrect,
yeah.
but
Duke Johnson?
that was Ryan.
what I
Ryan
just said.
literally
still
That's
incorrect.
the one you just complimented me on, Tom.
Can we lose points for re-guessing somebody? Somebody already
All right.
guessed?
Not when you're an idiot, Lucas, which is important to note.
All right.
Oh.
A famed knighted singer released a single, Miss Vanderbilt. That's where this player went to college and had over 1,000 yards in his sophomore season before being drafted in round 3 by an NFC North team.
This is crazy.
All right, I'll break this into key items. His last name is a former Canadian Prime Minister and also a singer who did a song with Lady Gaga, last single with Lady Gaga. Also, his first name is a British monarchic title. And the third clue is that he went to Vanderbilt and was drafted in round 3 by an NFC North team.
Oh no, you said NFC. Oh gosh. Oh no. Oh, this is killing me.
Oh my God.
I'm most pissed that I can't figure out the Lady Gaga clue. I thought I had that one on the first guess there.
All right.
Thought,
Have we still got
Oh.
absolutely nothing? The chat hasn't got this either. So are we going to the fourth clue on this one?
I think we
guess
have
so,
to.
Yeah.
Okay. This player had a career high of 717 receiving yards for the Chicago Bears. Other members of this player's
It's
team
Martellus
in
Bennett.
that same season, that's incorrect, were Matt Forte, Devin Hester, Greg Olson, and Johnny Knox.
These other players on the Bears in that season, you said?
Correct.
Okay.
I have no idea why I can't think of this guy because he played in the SEC while I've been alive, and I cannot piece it together. Oh my gosh.
Chat, this was your opportunity to get back in the game, but you guys have been shooting fucking blanks.
Oh my gosh.
I can
No,
tell Tom has
no.
got it, but he can't say anything until the next clue. So everybody else has a chance
Okay.
here.
Mid Bears receivers that from like
Okay, chat's finally
Back then.
got it.
Oh,
so Tom
it's
is
Earl-
out of the bet.
Oh my gosh. Is it Earl Bennett?
That's correct. It's Earl
Okay.
Bennett. You guys were all around it from
Oh
the
my
beginning. Tom had
gosh.
Stetson Bennett initially. The chat was saying Earl Campbell. You guys just finally put them together. Lucas gets on the board with 2 points. Earl Bennett.
I was so stuck on running backs and I could not move off running backs. I have no idea why I was thinking of Vanderbilt
I think I
running
went through
backs.
every player I knew named Bennett in my head for so long, and I forgot about Earl fucking Bennett.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
All right,
Thank you,
we're going
NFL head coach 07 for
Yes.
that. Oh my
NFL head
gosh.
coach 07. That's an incredible video game shout out.
Oh my
Shout out
gosh.
Jason Wright. He got that basically the same time Lucas did.
Wow.
Lucas is on the board. He's got 2 points. Tom's got 4. Ryan's still in the lead with 10, resting on his early success. We're going into the final round. And I don't know if this is going to be the easiest or the hardest. I'm not sure, but we'll find out soon. It's double points. Everybody's in the mix.
So annoyed.
All right. This former NFL player shares his first name with 17 kings of France.
Can you repeat that real quick?
Yep. This former NFL player shares his name with 17 kings of France.
of course it's a former. I know the name, I don't know the player.
Yeah, that's where I'm stuck.
Chat's got it. So chat will tie.
No
way.
Chat will tie Ryan if you guys don't get it on this clue. We're gonna do a 10 count.
King of France. That's King Louis. It's Louis Riddick.
That's correct.
The only NFL player with that name, by the way.
Also Louis Murphy.
I don't know who that is.
It came to me as Tom was talking, and I didn't want to interrupt him, and I
King
100% should have.
King
Shout out to
Louis,
Tom and
baby.
Dave had it. He was leader in the clubhouse.
Oh
for a second.
my
King
god!
Louis, Detroit Lions legend, PPR
There's only
fan,
one.
King,
Thomas
future
is
NFL GM.
Thomas's history
No.
videos
He
coming
was
back.
not a PPR fan. Yeah, he played defensive end. You're thinking of Theo Riddick. You still got it right, but
Oh.
he played safety. Never mind. He was a defensive player.
Never mind. I got the wrong player, but we got it.
Is that the first time someone's lost to the double points? Because I feel gutted right now.
No,
I got Thomas
Okay.
a couple
Oh,
of weeks.
yeah, I
Just
was-
usually you're sitting on 0 and you're not paying attention.
And then
You're right.
Thomas
I
got
did-
you
I
last
did
week.
fuck it up. Yeah, I did fuck that up. That's funny.
Oh my god!
Ray Louis.
Look at the win.
I'm looking at the chat. Ray Louis. That's hilarious. I
mean-
love that Charles Woodson is really good. Oh, Eddie Royal. That would have been a great.
That was a
Royal
great
was
guess on
back
the
in
previous
the,
clue.
was back in the
Yeah.
Earl Bennett. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I'm just going back and looking at the crew. The we had a Barry Sanders. What was that? Duke McAllister. Hilarious.
That's funny.
I did
love
almost accidentally say Eddie Royal, but then I was like, no, he
Anthony Miller.
No.
Damn, crazy. That was insane. Jacob, you are getting crazy with some of these. We have got ship captains. We have got premiers of Canada that I had to remember our history in. We've phenomenal.
Just want to point out, Tom needed a Canada question, and
You got a US
He didn't get the Canada question
question
right. He got the question wrong.
Oh right,
You did
sorry.
get it wrong.
I'm
And you got a
still
US
gonna complain, damn it!
question.
I'm still mad. Any
Oh.
other
Lucas got the
sequencing of
Canada
that?
question right.
Of course, the former NFL player had to be the one worth double
By the way,
points.
Tony Bennett is the singer we were looking for. With
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why
Yeah, I was going with Bradley Cooper. Thought Amari
No,
Cooper was a.
That's
good
that's
guess
pretty
there,
good.
But yeah,
That's why every Bennett I could think of, from Martellus to Stetson Bennett.
I didn't know the
every
Bennett
single one of them.
part.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Tony Bennett, who passed, I think, 2 years ago at age 96, had a hit single on a duet with Lady Gaga at like 93 years old. What a legend.
Oh my goodness. These last 2 weeks have been so
Probably the
brutal
most
on
fun.
my poor brain. My brain is not working like
Richard
this.
Bennett-
Holy cow.
Richard
I will be
Bennett
honest.
Premier.
This is me holding in the crash out right now. Like I
Let it out.
saw the joke on the title card about how I'm on the verge of a crash out, and I'm like, I'll show these guys I can totally keep control of myself and not crash out when I lose. I couldn't stay facing the camera, but
I don't know. The problem is I feel
this
like
is
I'm kind of
tame.
exhausting the reserves of how creative I can get with these. This is part of the reason why I mandated the I'm not hosting this next year rule, because I just feel like it's going to be diminishing returns at a certain point, but we'll see. I'm going to try to keep getting crazier and crazier.
I'm curious whenever Tom's going to leave his Trumpian ways. I'm no longer listed as the cheater on here.
Well, we'll see. We'll
Hey,
see.
this is not a politics podcast. Stay tuned
That's
for
right.
next week when we do politics.
No.
I will win that one. Yes, Jacob. Yes, do that.
Please. There were already. Look,
I will kick both their asses.
You know,
Yes.
we are in the NBA
This wide
finals.
receiver shares his name with a state senator. In Illinois.
You know, we are in the NBA finals. We could do a basketball question. I'm
Oh
just
God, I lose that too. I lose that too. It was rare enough that I knew what a premier of Canada, like who it was, because I know like 3. I don't even know who the new guy is. I don't even know what his name is yet. Haven't taken the time to learn it. I know Trudeau and I knew his dad. Those are the 2 that I knew for sure. And outside of that, I'm totally lost. It's not my neck of the woods. What is my neck of the woods is obscure facts. That's what I do. And I proved that again this week. Phenomenal outing by Jakob putting this together. tested the history. Thankfully, I have nothing better to do than to watch videos of former conquerors. Gave me a little bit of an edge here. Just took me a while. Shout out Ryan, man. You came so. I literally said it at the same time that you got it. So
I'm gonna go
to you.
Bang my head into a wall after this and wake up my roommates. Probably it'll be fun to explain.
Fantastic. With that being said, chat, we love you. Thanks for stopping in. Tyler with the super chat. Big, huge shout out to you. Shout out to Ron Stewart for popping in and trolling Jakob about the live draft. Shout out to everybody that tunes into the show every single week. Without you guys, there is no show. We say this every single week, and it never gets old to me. It is still not lost on me that a bunch of people still every week tune in, not only live, but download our podcast and listen to the sound of our voices. It still blows my mind, and I appreciate every single one of you guys for stopping in and even telling your friends sometimes. With that being said, that's going to do it for the show tonight. If you want more Dynasty Points content, you can look forward to that dropping either Friday afternoon/morning or Saturday. So shout out Dynasty Points Market Report. Stay locked in. Stay tuned in. You never know what's coming. Next week, the leash is off in terms of what Jakob talks about. We might get A.J. Brown's tripod back again. We might get more gym sock situations. We don't know what's going to happen when it gets late here on Dynasty Points. With that being said, remember that clear
I
eyes.
don't think it was socks. If we're running back the tape, it was a substance-soaked stuffed animal. I think if we're just being...
Oh, right. I thought it was a sock. I forgot. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to say
you're
what
correct.
substance.
Right. It might be jarring, especially if you're new here.
Yeah.
But if you've lasted this long in this pod, we love you. With that being said, remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, and that your best days, well, hot damn, I would say they're always spent tilting. Good night, everybody.
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.